One of the biggest evolutions in video games was definitely going from the 16-bit to the 32-bit. We went from games that were side-scrollers and just 2D dimensional kind of games, all the way to third dimension, and at the time it was pretty groundbreaking, but a lot of people look back at it now and think, man, I really thought this looked pretty good, this is freaking ugly. Yeah, I mean, the 5th generation is my personal favorite generation of video games, but I'll even admit it hasn't aged all that well in terms of the way it looks. Side-scrollers continued into the 32-bit era and went from 2D to 2.5D on a lot of games. Games like Tomba, Klonoa, and Hercules, it showed characteristics of a 2D game still, but reinvented in the 3D environment. Wild 9 is also one of those kind of games that was released on the PS1 back in the day that does something similar to that. I've talked about this game before on my list video for platform games, but just kind of played it, but this time I actually sat down and beat the game, and I definitely want to talk about what's going on with this game. So sit back, relax, let's go over Wild 9 for the PS1. Wild 9 was developed and published by Shiny Entertainment. It came out in 1998 only for the PS1. Shiny Entertainment was a big developer back in the 90s. Their first game was Earthworm Jim, and this game was a critically successful game back in the day, and one of the biggest games of the 16-bit era. And they also developed MDK, which this game was also on PS1 as well as PC. A lot of the people at Shiny Entertainment that worked on Earthworm Jim also worked on Wild 9, and you can even tell from the art style that it's very similar. How the story goes, you play as this guy named Wex, and you're in this unfamiliar galaxy far, far away, and the reason why it's called Wild 9 is there are 8 other travelers you find in the galaxy, and you're their leader. Well, there's this evil supervillain, his name is Karn, and it says he's 376 years old in case you want to know his age. He really desires Wex's weapon, which is called the Rig, and that's the main weapon you use in the game. It's like an electrical grappling hook thing. So what he does is he steals all of his friends in the Wild 9, Wex has to rescue them all and stop Karn. The controls are very basic for this game. You just use the D-pad, and you have the option to use analog controls, but it really doesn't matter with this game at all. And then you have the X button to jump, your square button is your rig, and triangle is your secondary weapon. You can use missiles or grenades in this game. The rig is really the spotlight of this whole game, and you'll be using it all the time in the main levels. You can also use it to grab onto these floating objects and swing side to side, kind of like those things in Rayman 1, those pink lums things. You can also use the rig to grab objects too, like these keys here, and you can use them to access doors. Whenever you grab enemies and slam them into the ground, they like scream like bloody murder when you're doing it too. Listen to this. Damn dude, I almost feel kind of sorry for these enemies. You really torture them in this game. Matter of fact, the cover of the game even says, torture your enemies. As you just saw, torturing your enemies is a huge big thing in this game, but there are a lot of puzzle solving sections that you'll actually have to do it with. Like this thing here in the first level, there's like this grinder thing that you can't get past, and you gotta use these enemies to pretty much just stop them, so you pretty much watch them bleed out to death and it breaks the machine. You also can use them as a platform on water, and you can submerge them in this acid pool and jump on their back. Kinda funny. My favorite one, you can use these enemies in these gear cogs, and you can use it as a grappling hook to get to where you need to go. I gotta say, that's pretty creative. You don't see that in too many games. What you see going on here on the screen is you got your health in the top left corner, as well as your lives right below that, as well as your rig meter. Now, whenever you start a level, your rig has like a blue laser. You can actually change the colors of that as you pick up a lot of energy from enemies. The more energy pellets you pick up, the stronger it gets, and it can get red, and it'll pretty much last longer, and you can hold enemies for a longer period of time. Other than that, the pickups in this game are pretty straightforward. You get extra lives all the time, as well as life ups, you'll see those often, and you'll see these 9 gears. There's 99 in every single level, and if you get all of them, you get an extra continue. I don't really think it's worth it though, because you're going to probably miss 1 or 2 of them. And you'll find ammo for missiles or grenades. You can only hold one or the other. I think the missiles are a lot better. Grenades are fine, but missiles just have more range to them. Like other side scrollers, you're going to find checkpoints throughout the level, so thankfully you don't have to start the level over if you die. At the end of a level, you get the results screen, and it tells you how many gears you have, of course, which I never ever got all 99, and it tells you your torture meter as well. Nothing too crazy, just tells you how good you did on killing enemies and killing a lot of them. This game is pretty linear all the way, just like Earthworm Jim, except this time you can see the planet that you're on in the level. You beat one level, you move on to the next, and you can actually save in between every level. That's a very nice touch, because if you don't have any continues and you lose all your lives, it's game over. You go back to your last save, and if you didn't save, well, you gotta restart the whole game, which would suck. Similar to Earthworm Jim, this game has a lot of level variety as well. You've got your regular levels where you're just going side-scrolling with your rig, and then you have falling levels too. This one's kind of tricky though, because the controls are weird. They're very stiff how they feel, and you slam enemies into the wall, and when you beat them all, then you move on to the next. Pretty short. Then you have these speed bike levels. These are also very short. You just shoot missiles at the enemy and then you move on. A nice touch of this game is in some levels you actually have some of the members of the Wild 9 help you. Like this one level here, his name's Nitro. He can blow up doors and he's pretty much just an infinite time bomb and it's kind of cool. I like it. Then you have this beast thing that you can ride on and you can actually dismount him too, and you eat stuff and you can roar and scare the shit out of these enemies. This is hilarious. I love this. And then you have this one escort mission, kind of like the puppy mission in Earthworm Jim, and her name's Crystal, and you have to direct light on her to make her move. This mission is pretty tough, but it's a lot more forgiving than the puppy mission in Earthworm Jim. Enemies mostly feel the same, just with different patterns. Some shoot their heads at you, and some shoot projectiles at you, or just melee attack. Then you have these little green slime things, and they're in these huge container things you gotta blow up with missiles. Sometimes they're blocking the way. There are boss fights in this game. They're kind of scattered throughout the game in random sections, and they're not too crazy. They're just standard old boss fights. I didn't really find the boss fights in this game to give me too much trouble. They're pretty easy. This game does have some kinks in it though. There's some hit detection weirdness that goes on sometimes in this game, especially the grabbing ledges, sometimes enemies that hit you with their projectiles, and hazards, like this fire here. I barely touched it, and when you touch that shit, you literally will not stop running and you will fall off the level. It's very frustrating, honestly. And there's difficulty spike patterns in this game. So most of this game is not that hard, but except for one level in my opinion, level 4, the crater world. This level sucks. The whole world is just shifting back and forth in the level. It's kind of disorienting, and just weird enemy placement and just sections of the level. It goes on for so long, and there's a boss that you fight twice in this level. This is the 4th level in the game, but after that, the rest of the game's not too bad. Another nuisance I have with this game is this game's called the Wild 9, and you see all these characters, but they're just kind of there. You don't really get to know who they are. There's no cutscenes with them, you know, with any humor or anything. They just kind of help you in the level, you beat the level, and you never see them again. Kind of a missed opportunity. They could have built on the characters just a little bit, just to have a little bit more fun with the game story. Wild 9 was definitely a fun playthrough. Definitely has that Earthworm Jim vibe in terms of the humor and everything. And I had a good time with all the different level designs and as well as gameplay. The music is also pretty stellar. I enjoyed the soundtrack when I was playing through the levels, and overall, it's just a good 2.5D platformer for the console. If you like Earthworm Jim or other Shiny Entertainment games and you missed out on this one, or if you just like PlayStation 1 platformers, this is definitely one I'd recommend to check out. It's a good candidate. This game has some very minor issues like I talked about just a minute ago, but nothing too crazy. Overall, it's a very solid playthrough. Wild 9 didn't have the same success Earthworm Jim had, and it's kind of trapped on its own console. It's never been re-released or anything. Good news is, if you want a physical copy of it, it goes for around $15 or so, complete in box. That's not a bad price at all for a good game like this, so that's a good way for collectors to own this game and a good way to just play this game on the cheap. That about wraps up this review for this video. If you got anything to say, leave a comment down below. And thank you guys so much for watching this video. Y'all take it easy.